a horror story, there are only victims and monsters. And the trick is not to end up as either.
13 years is a long time to wait for anything. In that amount of time I finished school, lost my virginity, and traveled the country. Now I cried through all of those things. But something that has been weighing on me over the years is what happened to Alan Wake. The last time I saw him, he had the same demeanor as a weeb on his 5th Naruto binge.
It's not a lake. It's an ocean.
I've heard nothing since then, but that's about to change. The wait is over, and it's time to experience one of the most profound events we've ever seen in gaming history.
Where's the dong?
So you knew our victim?
Well, I didn't recognize him in his current state. But yeah, I ran into him a few times at Quantico. Never worked any cases together. After his partner got killed in the field, he went off the deep end. Got the boot pretty quick after that.
The story in Alan Wake 2 also takes place 13 years after the first game's events. Alan Wake has been missing all that time, and his story has become a bit of an urban legend in Bright Falls, Washington. Urban legends are the only thing plaguing this town, however. A grisly murder brings the Federal Bureau of Investigation into the fray, and Special Agent Alex Casey and playable character Saga Anderson are here to figure out what is happening. It becomes apparent early into the investigation that this is not a run-of-the-mill murder. When the famous missing writer appears basically out of nowhere, they have nothing but questions.
I'm extremely confused.
Players will experience two narratives when playing through Alan Wake 2. They have the previously mentioned FBI agent Saga Anderson and Alan Wake himself. Saga's story is more about personal growth, while Alan's story is more about conquering insurmountable odds. Both narratives have differences, but one common attribute is their focus on investigation. Saga unravels the truth about Bright Falls, while Alan explores the dark place. He's not the same person we left in the last game. He's twitchy and irritable. But can you blame the guy? On that note, this is a much darker game than the first time around. Alan Wake 2 isn't afraid to let its hem rating show. A blanket of dread is draped over this narrative, leaving the player in a morose state. Hearing me say that, you'd be forgiven for assuming this story is a brooding, supernatural crime thriller. And that is true, but remember this game was made by Remedy. This development team never misses an opportunity to get weird.
Such a dark place, am I trapped in here? Is this real? I cannot remember.
Something else I wanted to mention is that this is a story you need to stick with. A few things in the narrative caused me to jump to conclusions, and I made assumptions about the story before the true answer was presented. The writers of this game are masters of misdirection, and it's a lot of fun to go through the motions of revelation with Alan Wake. This is a massive positive for the game, but I do have a couple of complaints.
Of course!
First, it helps players interpret the plot if you played Remedy's other title, Control. Alan Wake and Control take place in the same universe, and Control explains the supernatural element. It makes this more palatable in Alan Wake's story. I say this because if you don't have this context of the government being aware of the supernatural, you'd assume these FBI agents have ice in their veins. I mean, a man comes back from the dead in front of them, and they have the same reaction I have when I find spare change in my jeans.
Look at that!
The other complaint with the story is that we leave off on another cliffhanger. We waited 13 years to resolve the last cliffhanger. Am I supposed to wait until I'm 39 to find out how this story ends? My dick might not even work by then. I have bigger problems. Despite several shortcomings, I'd say this game is one of the most unconventionally unique stories I've ever played. Alan Wake 2 happens when you leave the film 7 and the TV show Twin Peaks in a room together. They do unholy things to one another and somehow produce an excellent video game. It's pretty cool. How did the gameplay shake out?
Heart removed from chest, strapped by the wrists. Definitely matches the previous murders. But this time the heart and the straps were left behind. More clues to work with. This makes 4 murders that we know about.
Like the story, players can expect separate experiences when playing as the two characters. I found it hard to describe what genre Alan Wake 2 should be categorized as. What is it exactly? Is it a survival horror game? A puzzle game? An action-adventure game?
What are you?
It's all of those things, but not all at the same time. Let me explain. You can jump between the two characters at safe havens. After you reach each character's 3rd chapter, Saga's missions are more action-oriented, with some crime-solving elements. The game plays a lot like the recent third-person Resident Evil remakes. You have an upgradable inventory, you find supplies, fight bad guys, and enjoy some coffee.
Oh, that rich, bittersweet nectar.
It does feel like survival horror, considering enemies hit harder, ammo is scarce, and you must find a limited supply of healing items. instead of having a passive health recharge that was seen in the first game. Still, the gameplay loop isn't particularly challenging. I played this game on hard and didn't encounter any supply issues, and I was being very liberal with my bullets.
Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
Why the fuck you do that?
Juxtapose this with Alan's missions. There are still intense fights, but Alan's gameplay is more puzzle-focused. Most of Saga's puzzles are side collectibles, but this isn't the case with Alan. You will often need to solve a puzzle to progress. The Dark Place is a trippy environment to navigate, which means its reality also has some odd mechanics, one of which is the angel lamp that Alan uses. You can literally take light away from an environment, which changes things that were previously there. This leads to some mind-bending puzzles not seen in Saga's campaign. That being said, there are some overlapping mechanics. You can upgrade both characters' attributes, and both characters have narrative mechanics seen with the Mind Place and the storyboard. Starting off with the upgrades, Saga can find lunchboxes throughout the levels that contain manuscript fragments that can be used to upgrade one of the game's many new weapons, and she's able to equip up to 3 charms that contain buffs to help tailor your playstyle. Alan, on the other hand, finds words of power that can not only upgrade weapons, but himself as well. He can also have upgrades like max health, increased flashlight capacity, or a cock that works past the age of 39.
What do you need to get off your chest?
The Mind Place and the storyboard are some of the most exciting additions to Alan Wake 2. You see, most of the items you pick up or interact with will end up in Saga's Mind Place. This includes side collectibles, so if you solve a riddle, find a lunchbox, or talk to an NPC, odds are you'll be given a bit of information to add to the Mind Place. This will always lead to more information pertaining to the story. The more you find, the more you'll understand the plot. There's also a mechanic where Saga profiles people she's spoken to. Watching her break things down is fascinating, and adds a nice detective angle to the game. Alan's storyboard functions similarly, but he can rewrite reality in the Dark Place. This helps you navigate the puzzles you encounter. If done incorrectly, you can expect a loop like we're playing PT.
Daughter had the good sense to hide in the bathroom.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows though. While the Taken are fun to fight, the enemy variety somehow manages to be just as bad as it was in the first game, and the pacing is a bit funky in this title. As I said at the start of this section, it's hard to categorize Alan Wake 2, and it's because of this, it sometimes felt like a chore to switch playstyles. I'd play for hours in a puzzle-solving mindset, and at a moment's notice, I need to dodge enemies like I'm Neo. Luckily, you get an actual reticule in this game, unlike the first Alan Wake, which helped, but the only difficulty I encountered was my inability to acclimate. Also, the safe haven mechanics return, but I don't think I ever truly used them. Safe haven's function is cover against the Taken, and standing beneath the light they can't see you. But the problem is it's easier to just run up and shoot these dudes in the face. I could hang back and wait for the element of surprise, but what's the point?
There is no point.
The checkpoints are dog water. You'd think you'd get a checkpoint at the end of every chapter, right? There isn't one most of the time though. I found this out the hard way. I quit the game to do some research, and lost about 20 minutes of progress.
Oh, that's bad.
I have reservations about Alan Wake 2's gameplay, but I honestly loved my experience. Alan Wake 2 has a familiar gameplay for its foundation, but the forks in the road are genuinely where the game shows its character. We've seen improvements and drawbacks from the story and the gameplay, so what can be seen with the presentation?
I was back. I wasn't able to escape. The dark presence had stopped me.
Alan Wake 2 had a lot of news leading up to its release, but arguably the most controversial was the PC requirements.
What the fuck?
Yes, this is steep, and I'd understand if you just bought the game on the new generation of consoles, but I think these specs are a little bit overstated. I say this because I have an RTX 3080, and I was able to play the game with a few settings on high. The rest of the settings were on medium, and I did have ray tracing on. Granted, it was the lowest setting available for ray tracing, but your boy still hit 60 frames per second.
Oh, I didn't realize you were chill like that.
Regardless of the setting, this game looks incredible. Remedy's Northlight engine is jaw-dropping, and if you have a PC that can run it, you will be shocked at how good a game can look. Fuck, it looks great on console as well. This is just a good-looking game. Facial animations, particle effects, god rays all look amazing in Alan Wake 2. The environment also looks stunning, with the Dark Place being the standout. It's basically New York City, but if light never touched the metropolis. All hope was lost and violent, eccentric weirdos flood the streets. So, New York City.
Now watch this drive.
Returning to recognizable locations from the first game to see how they look is one of the highlights. Cauldron Lake and the O'Dear Diner specifically filled me full of nostalgia. They even have the jukebox. But wait. No. It's gone. Why, God? Why? Speaking of music, the game has a great score, with some licensed tracks that I like so much they ended up on my playlist. Not only that, but Remedy has some original music to rock the crowds as well. The voice acting was amazing in the first game, and I'm happy to say that's a tradition that carried over to Alan Wake 2, and they fleshed the characters out a bit more this time. Not only that, but the live-action cutscenes are more prominent than they were previously, so audiences everywhere will get to see Alan Wake brought to life in an engaging new way. When it comes right down to it, I don't have much of anything to complain about sound or graphics-wise. I'm happy Remedy chose to make their presentation reflect the peculiar nature seen in the gameplay and story. Otherwise, this game may have not made such a striking impression. 13 years is a long time to wait. Was it worth it? This is one of the few times where I can say yes. The 13-year wait was worth it because we got another cult classic on our hands. The story is more compelling, the gameplay is distinctively refined, and the graphics will blow your skirt up. Yes, the pacing is strange and the cliffhanger ending leaves a bad taste in my mouth, but I couldn't stop thinking about Alan Wake 2 when I would set it down. I can't remember the last game that had me itching to run back and play it. That's probably a sign of a good time. Or it's because
I smoked a lot of crack.
This one's getting a firm recommendation from me, even with it being an Epic Store exclusive. As always, thank you for your time.